Welcome back to the fourth episode of Purpose-Filled Ambitious Podcast. Today we got Bryant Madden on the podcast. Super excited to get in on this one. Bryant and I have met in high school, actually. He was my goalkeeper in soccer. We share a lot
Yep,
of memories on and
going
off the
back.
field, and just a lot of fun. So, Bryant, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing now.
Well, man, I appreciate you having me on the podcast, Jack.
Absolutely.
Good to catch back up. Yeah, right now I'm just working. I'm working at a store called Salt Superstores. Been married of 2.5 years now. My wife and I are actually about 15 weeks into pregnancy with our first
Yeah,
child. So yeah, super excited. Uh, and yeah, man, just doing that and just trying to provide.
that's awesome. That's awesome. So, when I first asked you to be on the podcast, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, first of all, I was like, man, I have no idea what I'm going to talk about at all. Like, I don't know where this is going to go. But no, genuinely, when I was listening to the first podcast, what really stuck out to me is whenever you said nowadays a lot of people are consuming content, but they're not creating content. That resonated with me a lot because I was actually in a kind of like transition period of really, trying to, decide whether I was like I felt like God was calling me to basically create content or what that looked like. And I felt like it was, I was getting pushed towards creating more. And then I listened to that and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's just a sign right there." So yeah, I appreciate you saying that. But that's kind of like, what encouraged me. And then, yeah, it gave me some ideas to come on today.
Nice, nice. So, like, what kind of content are you looking to create in your profession right now?
So right now, I've had a lot of experience with creating like either educational content or just like gym edit and those type of things because
Mhm.
with my line of work it's a lot of fitness and things of that nature, nutrition. And so I've had a lot of experience the last couple of years working at Supplement Superstores creating content for that type of thing, but now I'm transitioning into creating content for like music production. I have had, it's probably been since like freshman year of high school. I've always had a love for music, but freshman year of high school I was really like, I want to start like making music and start like actually making this a thing. And it's really just been this year that I've like really delved into it. I've tried in the past couple times, but there's been a lot of things that kind of come and go with that, and we can get to that in later
Yeah, yeah.
questions. But yeah, man.
Cool, cool. So I kind of asked the guys on the first episode when you talked about it, but like we see this big difference between like people consuming content versus people creating content, and there's like a big divide. And so I asked them like, why do you think that is? But why do you think that is? Is it?
Dude, yeah, it's a lot of different things, and like for me personally, it was just a fear of putting myself out there. You know what I mean? Like you're really putting yourself out there for everyone to see, and if you're authentic about it, it's all your mishaps, all your like the good, the bad, all the in between, and
Mhm.
so it's really really showcasing. And then also too, like I think sometimes people get like an imposter syndrome. So basically, they're like, I'm not good enough to actually be making this type of content. Like, who would want to listen to me? But it's like, no, like that's how you learn and grow is by getting feedback from people and just learning along the way. And that's where you start to get to the people that like you watch on social media, and you're like, man, I love for my podcast to look like this, or for me, my music to sound like this. It's
Mhm.
just learning over time and putting in the hours.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. And I think like thinking about this podcast and like why I created it, I kind of saw that, man, people are getting a really big outreach on the internet, and it's like,
Hmm.
what do I want to put out there that's actually gonna be authentic, like you talked about, and like stuff that I actually care about. And I think this, like, it's been going great so far. I think the biggest thing is like we're only gonna grow from here, and I think you just got to start somewhere. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's awesome that you're creating a platform for so many different perspectives and people's stories to be shared. Like, the first group of guys was you were talking about business stuff, and then also like where the podcast was going to go. And then, you had Raina on, and was talking about faith. And it's like you genuinely can have so many different people on here to talk about whatever because it really pertains to multiple different like pillars that you've built within this. And I think that's really awesome because it gives people a platform to share what they're learning, going through, being taught, and then hopefully it, inspires someone in the future.
So I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So Brian, like, what's the biggest mindset shift someone needs to go from being a consumer to now being a creator?
I think whenever it came to me making that switch, was realizing that like people have consumed enough content to know how to start creating. So whatever aspect that looks like, kind of like I was touching on earlier, you really just have to get into it and start it. The other thing that I think is huge whenever you start being a creator is realizing that you are your biggest product. Like yourself, like you are the best product out there. It's not like the type of music I'm making. It's not the podcast that you're running. It's like your personality and who you are is what's going to speak to people and what's going to draw people back. And so basically putting yourself out there and showcasing who you really are as a person, because authenticity, people smell intent.
Mm.
Authenticity really shows through. And if you're not authentic, then it's like, you're just going to be another, person on the internet trying to make that one hit viral video that's going to skyrocket your views. But it's like at the end of the day, if you really have something you're passionate about and you have something you want to be heard, that's where you're like, okay, I've been consuming all this content. Let me actually start to put some, info out there, put some value out there to people and get going from there.
Yeah, that makes sense. This could be kind of a tough question, but I don't know a ton about the music industry and stuff like that. But how do you then make yourself different than the rest in the music world? Obviously, like, I don't know, like, do you do vocals, thing like this? Like, what makes you unique?
That's a great question, dude. To be honest, I'm still trying to figure that out myself. If I knew that, I feel like I'd probably have a lot more views and a lot more, uh, just everything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's whenever you're in the music industry and the route that I'm trying to take, because there's a lot of different routes you could take too within it. I'm trying to go the route of like creating value to people through like what I'm able to teach them or just like show them while I'm making like my process.
Gotcha.
But then also too, like working with like artists that are in the industry already. So there's a lot of like Christian artists that I kind of have my sight set on that I'm like making beats specifically for
Mm.
that I would like to basically put in like a pack, send to them. And then, if they use one of those, that can be like a stamp of approval. It's like, hey, I've worked with these artists, here's what I've learned in the process and here's how I can help you level up your music to get to this point one day.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of like that's my plan right now. It could evolve into something else where it's like something completely different takes off and I'm just like, okay, cool, I'm gonna run with this. But at least to give me a general direction right now, that's kind of what I've planned.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And we kind of touched on this, but what do you think holds people back the most? Fear, perfectionism, or just not knowing where to start? Like, what do you think holds people back the most?
I think knowing where to start is about 50% of it because it can be hard or it can seem daunting whenever you're getting started in the aspect of whatever it is. Like, you see some people's like setups or you see something, you're like, man, I got to have all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you have an iPhone, you can really start doing anything you need to do. There's a lot of different avenues and you can make it work. But I think, like I said, that's about 50% of it. And then the other half is the fear of perfectionism. Once you get over the fear of actually starting to make content, then it's also the perfectionism of like, okay, how do I make this look even better? Or, hey, I don't like the way I sound in this. I don't like the way I look in this. It's just kind of like a back and forth. But once you can kind of get over that and realize that, one, you are seeing more than anyone else is going to see or notice.
Mhm.
Like people aren't going to notice all the minute little details that you're focused on. And two, if they do, you're going to get better at making content over time. So it's not going to be a consistent thing. So you just have to keep at it, keep pursuing it, and then also obviously learn from the mistakes you're making in the past so that you can be better about it in the future.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. When you're talking about just the stuff that you could buy to improve your content, it reminded me of like just these famous people who like say like all I need is an iPhone and a good Wi-Fi and I'll be famous. And it's crazy. Like that's really all you need.
Yeah. They're like, yeah, I can make money just off my iPhone. And
Wild.
it's true, but it is also like you do want to invest in your setup,
Yeah.
right? If you're trying to increase quality and production value,
Uh,
but you don't need that to start.
yeah.
To get started, you just need the basics and then you just need to put your voice out there.
So is there a creator or influencer that inspires you the most or that you watch the most?
So I got a couple. I mean, some of my biggest inspirations are gonna be like an artist named Holvey and then another guy named Keon Boom. Basically, they're just huge like Christian rappers slash songwriters in the industry right now, and genuinely like they're their music is what helped me honestly just cut out all of the secular music that I was listening to. For the longest time, I was listening to, Drake, Kendrick, and it was just feeding negative thoughts into my mind. So whenever it came to it, I was able to find these guys. And yeah, their music was awesome. They had a good message with it. And it was the type of music that I enjoy making too. So it kind of just went hand in hand. And genuinely, they carried themselves in such a way that it's never about them and their music. Like it's all about their experiences, but it's what God has done for them. And I think that's super cool because at the end of the day, like without him, like, we'd have nothing. It could all be gone.
That's cool. That's cool. One influencer that kind of inspired me is honestly Travis Kelce and just like his podcast with his brother. I feel like it's super like genuine and they just go on and they're just having a good time and it's really gone viral. And I think that's super cool. Just number one, being from Kansas City and just getting to see it, but also like as I build a podcast, I like note certain things like, oh, I kind of like that. Like I like that it looks. Just kind of like the short clips that they then make a whole podcast and then they go back and have these little clips on different social medias. And I think that's super important when you're trying to build a brand. And I think they've done a really good job at it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've seen a few of their podcasts, and they're always either super funny or sometimes I've seen some like more serious clips, than just getting personal. And it's just cool to see guys like that because I think as people, especially like whenever you watch football a lot, like you tend to put those guys on like a pedestal of like, man, they're just like so much more successful and like, I mean, they're really good at what they do. But then when you see like the human side of them, it's like,
absolutely.
It's like, okay, no, these guys are just dudes going through life just like we are. So
for sure.
cool.
Yeah. So next question, how do you personally balance consuming valuable content while not letting it be a distraction?
That's a good question. It's a tough one, to be honest. It's a tough balance to have. I think the easiest thing that I found is by putting like screen time widgets on my phone, because it's super easy to transition from watching valuable content to content that is just, those quick dopamine hits. And then all of a sudden, you spent 30 minutes, 45 minutes on your phone and done nothing at that point. So that's one thing that's helped me out. Another thing is cleaning out who you're following to be only things that you want, like to either inspire you or like, it's content that you want to see that's going to benefit you. Because, if I'm working on music production stuff and I got a bunch of meme pages that are just feeding memes onto my feed, it's like, how good is that actually? How much is that actually helping,
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And I think like thinking about social media being a distraction and stuff, like I mean, I like social media because I get to catch up with people without like being face to face with them. And I think it's a very valuable tool.
Yeah, 100%.
But like with that being said, there's also like people give up social media for a long period of time and it's great. But like, where do you stand on that? Could you go with just deleting all your social medias and being good, or what do you think on that?
I definitely think at this point now, which is how long I've been on social media, there would definitely be some negative side effects of that.
Yeah, for sure.
In all honesty, I think the biggest one is just the fact that it's such an integral part in like my work. Like working at S2, we're very big on like building your own brand through that aspect. So that's one part. I definitely think for me, like I said earlier, putting the screen time widgets on my phone, like right where I can see it as soon as I open my phone, and it's like visible and conscious every time I open my phone, has helped a lot because of the fact that I have to be on my phone for work. And then also now that I've been pursuing content on the music production side of things, it's very easy to let it get out of hand. And so that's why I kind of utilize that the most. And then whenever I am like off or say my screen time, like I set mine to like an hour a day. And then if I need it, it has that 15-minute option. Yeah. So then I'm able to get back on it, do something I need, and then 15 minutes later it shuts back off. So then I can kind of utilize that. So that's one thing that I've done.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Do you ever feel like overwhelmed by social media, or how do you handle that?
Dude, all the time. It is, even if you're conscious of it, it's so hard even if you're aware of it, it's so hard to not compare yourself whenever you're on social media.
Yeah.
There's always things that you're like, man, I could be doing this better, doing that better. And like to an extent is a good thing because it's kind of like that motivation of like, how should I better this certain area. But then once you start to like let it run your thoughts and you start to compare things that you can't change, either like, or not change, not can't change, but like the way you look or the way you sound or this or that, that's like starts to become negative talk and negative feedback.
Yeah.
It starts to get a little too much. So for me, it's genuinely just taking what I'm like consuming. So like whether I see a video that like has better music than I do, I'm like, why is it better? And then I go and immediately try to like recreate that in my studio that I have. And that's helped a lot whenever it comes to like the actual creation side of things, because then I can learn like tricks that they're using or like different stuff like that. And it helps out. Or like in the gym, you learn a new workout that someone's doing. It's like, dang, I need to try that. That looks like it's really good for whatever.
Yeah, that's
But
good.
it is a hard way to balance it both.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when I posted my first episode of the podcast, like I literally watched it like 30 times over again. I'm like, do I really want to post this? And in the end, like, does it really matter? Does it really matter what people think? Like, I'm just voicing my thoughts. And so
100%.
I ended up posting it. And now I feel like better. Like, I feel better about it, posting more and more content, honestly, going about like in that approach.
Just having that first one out there really just sets the tone for yourself. It's like, okay, cool. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
any mistakes now, we're gonna work on bettering those. So
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Do you think content creation should be a daily habit, or is it okay to create in bursts?
like over like a period of time, kind of, you mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Gotcha. I think there's a balance. I think depending on what you're doing, it can be good to make content or at least just post content daily, whether it's like reposting other people's things or just being active on social media, touching in with people. I don't think you necessarily have to create your own content every single day.
yeah,
I think that's whenever it gets to a point where you start to not live in the moment because you're
yeah,
always constantly trying to be like, how can I create this as content? How can I do this? And I think it's important to have those moments where your phone's not present, and you're spending time with the loved ones or whatever you're doing. I definitely think it's better to be consistent in this day and age. You definitely want quality things, but consistency is what's actually helping like content take off on platforms now.
yeah,
Um, and also too, it just builds your brand. Like the more history someone has on you whenever looking at your page of content, the more they're able to see like your versatility, the different things, and it gives you a little bit more credibility whenever it comes to, what you're doing and what you're trying to pursue.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think going back to making this podcast, like initially said, like, all right, every Sunday I'm gonna post an episode, but like it then just puts so much pressure on you to get guests, get good content, and all this stuff. It's like, is it really worth all that?
Yeah.
And so I then just like, all right, I'm gonna kind of do it in an efficient way. Obviously, I'm gonna try to get stuff out every week, but not a specific day, specific time, all this stuff. Because in the end of the day, I got a life to live and a wife to
Yeah.
make happy.
100%. Yeah. It's good goals, but you're not setting hard deadlines, which is important.
Absolutely. How much time do you think someone should spend creating versus consuming?
Yeah. I think in like a quantifiable number, I guess, because I was trying to think of how to put it. Um, quantifiable quantifiable number, it'd be 80% creating, 20% consuming.
Really?
I think it's important to consume, but I think at the same time, if you spent as much time creating as you were consuming, you would progress so much faster.
Yeah.
So like minimum 50-50 split starting out.
That's
like,
what I was gonna say. I was gonna say 50-50.
Yeah, but once you're like really like going after it, it's good to know what's out there and like what's doing well, or like, maybe like still learning yourself. That's important. But I think you should be putting more time into actually creating and just trying to like better what you can. If there's something that you realize like, hey, I could have edited this better, or maybe spend a little bit more time on this. That's kind of like the split that I'm trying to have right now. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's tough to kind of put a number on it, but I do think it's super valuable to also like take in, like, as we're creating different things, you want to see different trends in the world and things like this. And I think like when I was in college as an athlete, like I had zero time to like like just see what was going on in the world. And now that I have a job and I get more free time, like it's been cool to like listen to podcasts and different things to kind of just get more knowledge. And so I think that's kind of helped me create as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Since Purpose-Filled Ambitions is about ambition with purpose, what role do you think content plays in that?
So I feel like for me personally, I got a few different things, but I think your ambitions deep down come from like what your purpose is really meant to be, what what God has for your life. And even just in general, like whatever you pursue, I feel like that's where the ambition comes from. I think for me, that's adding and creating value to people, but then also showing what one of my passions is, being able to like create music that, makes people feel emotion, makes, people just either happy or it just conveys a message. I think that's been the biggest thing for me in music. And that's like the reason that I love music so much is because you can say 1,000 things with 0 words and then you add words to it and then it just takes it even that much further. Being able to kind of have that has been what's fueled me and has helped me push through and like start creating content is because I feel like I have something important to share with people. And at the end of the day, it's the way that I feel like I can connect the best and portray different things the best.
Yeah, that's good. And I think like, I chose this name for a reason, Purpose-Filled Ambitions. And I think there's just like listening to you talk about it and just hearing it, like there's so many different purposes. There's so many different ambitions. Like there's such a wide variety this could go.
Uh-huh.
And I think both purpose and ambitions are so important. And like as I navigate through this business world and just life and becoming a husband and building a family, it's like these two words, like there's a lot to that. And ambitions is not only just like business ambitions, but it's just any ambition you have.
Uh-huh.
And having purpose behind it, I think is just so important. And if you don't have purpose, then like maybe you should reconsider because like, why are you doing it type of thing?
100%. I think the main ambition, and I don't want to speak for you on this, but I think like the main ambition at the end of the day is to like provide for our families, to have a family, to provide in whatever way that looks like. And then, create in general something that's like going to last, create a family, create for you, this podcast that hopefully speaks to people in whatever way they need, for me, music that speaks to people in whatever way they need, it's just being able to create something that's like meaningful. And then wherever that kind of goes with it, like, I think that's it's pretty cool on that.
Yeah. How do you think faith fits into this content creation? Is there a spot for it?
I definitely think there's a spot for it if you make it. It's very easy, I've noticed, to leave faith out of it. I don't necessarily want to say it's a bad thing, but I think if you have a faith, it's very important to share that aspect of it because, if it's a big part of your life, then like, why wouldn't you want to share what God has done in your life? And whatever your faith looks like for me, it is Jesus Christ is my Savior. He has changed my life and He has gotten me through and provided in a lot of different ways that I'm 100% not deserving of, but I didn't even see coming. And then you see a door open and you go through it and you're like, wow, like you had so much better plans than what I had planned for myself.
Yeah.
And so I definitely think it's important to keep that front of mind and then also to just like share whenever you can because you're not always going to have the opportunity. But when that opportunity does come up, you don't want to be the one who stays quiet and doesn't say anything.
Yeah, that's really good stuff. And I think when talking about the podcast, like I had a vision and there were some episodes that I wanted to do faith and there were some episodes that I wanted to do business.
Mm-hmm.
And like as I continue to go through this and have new guests, like obviously I respect the guests I have on here and I respect what they want to say and stuff like that. But like all of the ones I've had so far, it's like they have a serious purpose and they have like faith. And it's like, how do I control my content without like, I don't know
Pushing it too far over.
Yeah. Like, yeah, it's tough to say, but I feel like there was a part of me who's like, do I want to keep pushing Jesus into this podcast, or is it becoming too much?
Mm-hmm.
But like slowly I'm starting to understand it's like, no, this is like people's life. This is what gives them purpose. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to change that. I'm just bringing guests on and they're saying what they want to say type of thing. So I think that's
100%.
been super cool, and just kind of God's just kind of paving a way for me, and I'm just kind of following the lead, which has been awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, if it's meant to be, it'll happen. And at the end of the day, like we are called to be we are called to be set apart.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that is like, at the end of the day for me, like my biggest thing is if I lose viewers over that, if I lose subscribers or whatever it is over that, like so be it. Like that wasn't my target audience anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not to say like obviously like you said we're pushing it, but it is important to us. And when we're creating things, like if that's a part of it, that's just what it's going to look like.
Absolutely. Yeah, you said it well. So what's one piece of advice for someone who wants to start creating but doesn't know like where to start?
I would say one, go for it. Just start. Just even if it's recording something on your phone and it stays in there for a little bit, but you at least tried. Like just start doing something. If it's genuinely you have the stuff you need, you just don't know like what you should do or start. Go look at someone's page or go look at someone's like channel that is doing what you're wanting to do and see what they do. And it's not a bad thing to emulate or try to replicate what someone's doing, especially if it helps give you a direction, because then eventually you'll find your own niche. You'll find your own kind of like method that you like that works, and that'll start to branch you off from whoever you're kind of using as a reference.
Yeah, that's good. And I was gonna say those two points, but also like adding value to what you're doing is like is what I'm doing gonna is other people gonna add like have value from this? I think that's another huge thing.
Yeah, 100%.
So what's the biggest myth about content creation you'd like to debunk?
I think the biggest one that I tend to see the most is that you have to know 100% of everything you're talking about, or you have to be a professional in whatever you're trying to do. I think that's the biggest thing that holds people back, because kind of like I said earlier in the podcast, that imposter syndrome starts to creep in and you start to tell yourself that you don't know as much as the next person. And I'll be the first to tell you, you will never know everything you need to know. There will always be something more that you can learn. And so at the end of the day, like you starting is like where you're at now is the most important part. And it's, I think, the biggest myth that like people think they have to have it all figured out before they can start. And it's like, no, like you're going to figure it out as you go.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of learning along the process, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
If you could go back and tell yourself, your past self, something about content creation, what would it be?
I tell myself a couple things. I'd say one, that I could do it. For the longest time, I didn't think I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And two, that to just keep working on my craft, to not give up on that, to not basically see it as like a one-way thing, but to just keep learning, keep growing in that aspect. And then, I mean, really just, fail time and time again until you learned all the failures that you could make. And then all of a sudden, you have something worthwhile.
Yeah, that's good. I think one thing for me is like, I felt like I always had to like post on a page that had like followers, and like I was always scared to create a new page because it has 0 followers and there's gonna be like 0 views. But in actuality, like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, they have all these algorithms, and they get your content showed in different ways. And I don't know all the science behind that, but it's just important to know like just because you're starting fresh doesn't mean your content isn't going to be viewed by different people. And it's important to consistently create more and more so that there's more to see. Last question of the day. What's next for you? Will you start creating more content?
So I actually like this question a lot. It's funny. So I've really started like getting my content going, been working on a lot of stuff the last like few weeks, honestly.
Mm.
Today was like the day that I actually made like a bunch of different socials on TikTok, Instagram. What was the other one? YouTube. And I'm finally getting like content like really out there and starting to make like long form and short form content. I've got a few more music production videos that are in the works right now. and a couple more like short form videos that I'm editing. So, yeah, 100%. Honestly, this is just the beginning, and I'll still keep doing like my content on like the health and like training side of things.
Yeah.
For like my personal stuff, but then yeah, my music production stuff is it's gonna start taking off. So
Sweet, sweet. I'm excited to help you promote it. What's
appreciate
the
it.
name of the accounts?
So it varies on a couple of them.
Gotcha.
Mainly it's just BFX, the 3 letters right there.
BFX.
So on YouTube it's BFX dot MP3, and then on Instagram here, let me make sure I'm saying this right. Like I said, I've only had this account for about a week now. On Instagram, it's bfx.beats.
Sweet,
So,
sweet.
yeah,
Everyone go give him a follow and like his content.
appreciate that a lot.
All right, Bryant. Think that's a wrap. Appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you having me, Jack, genuinely.
Absolutely. Thanks for watching, everyone.